This is obviously an incredibly serious issue. It's an appalling tragedy. And I have nothing but deep admiration for Esther, her mum, and the courage and resolve that she's shown. I just think it's really important we're really clear about what we're talking about here. Rishi, the Prime Minister, was doing a bit at the beginning of PMQs, talking about Labour's continuing change of position.
Yeah, he had a long list. That's what it
was about. Yeah, exactly.
But surely having a long list, I could see it was written down in front of him. He should have been fast-footed enough to realise who was in the chamber and just drop that joke, and that was a mistake.
But it was absolutely nothing to do with, obviously, this incident. And
it wasn't to do with the incident, but...
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure you saw Esther's interview from the weekend, which was, really incredible and humbling. And she was talking specifically about the need for us to focus on mental health support in schools and, regulation of social media. And she said specifically she didn't want it to be about the trans side of things. So that is where she is coming from, and I think we should respect that.
That's her mother. Her father, Richard Spooner, has just said that he thinks that Rishi Sunak should apologise. Surely he should.
The position is as I've just given you.
I can hear and see how uncomfortable you are, but when Brianna's father listens to all of that, sees what he said in the Commons, and what the Prime Minister did was he read out his entire joke when he shouldn't have done. Surely the least you guys should do is say, look, these things happen, we hold up our hands, we're sorry, we apologise.
I want to be really, really clear that it wasn't a joke. This was talking about Labour's U-turn on
Everybody was laughing on your side.
But it was about Labour's U-turn on certain positions. It was absolutely nothing to do with this, appalling tragedy.
But I'm sorry, I'm going round and round in circles here. It was a terrible mistake to say it, surely. I'm going to read you something Elliot Colburn, the Conservative MP, who made such a moving speech today, a very moving speech. So we applaud him. Here's what he says. There is no evidence at all that this trans row is going to help anybody win an election. That's the government, would be well advised to drop it now and come back to Parliament to talk about the issues that really matter, not inventing ones that aren't there. He's right, isn't he?
The trans issue does actually really matter. I mean, again, I want to separate it from the appalling case that we were talking about earlier, but trans issue in general does really matter. It has a real impact on children specifically. What the work that Kemi has done, which is actually trying to take the politics out of this and look at the medical evidence and about whether it's right, which there is a genuine debate as to whether it's right to transition at a young age and on what the impact that has.
Those things are really important. I said at the top of the show, these are real issues. However, as it were, trivialising it or using it for a kind of cheap party political point when Brianna's mother was in the chamber was simply a mistake. And when her father says again he thought that what the Prime Minister said was demeaning, and he asks for an apology. These are not, just average members of the public. These are the parents of a murdered 16-year-old. And I just say to you one last time, please, can you not just say sorry?
This is obviously an incredibly desperately difficult situation. I just want to say what I would say again, that I have so much, sympathy, admiration for the way they've handled all of this. But the Prime Minister was not talking about this case. He just wasn't.
All right, we're going to move on. I think you guys are making a mistake here, but there we go. Let me talk about the Labour spending issue. You produced a big paper today which argues that the plan that Labour has to insulate 19 million houses year by year by year is going to cost between 12 and 15 billion pounds. Labour say that is not their plan. What you've been doing is talking to special advisors and special interest groups and so forth, and you have misunderstood what Labour intend to do. They intend to use much more of the private sector to do this.
Yes, well, thank you for engaging with this in such detail, because I think it is really important. It comes to the heart of a choice that people are going to have to make at the election. And the £28 billion of unfunded spending commitments that Labour have, they can't say how they'll pay for because they don't have a plan, and this will mean tax cuts for everyone. What we've done is we've drawn out one specific element of this, which is their plan for insulation of 19 million homes, which they said they'll do over 10 years. And they've been very specific. It's about these number of homes, and it will be for every home that fits this category, right? So, and it's quite a simple thing to cost from that perspective. And we've set out the parameters very clearly. And this is all things that they have said publicly. I mean, I know there's a sell-by date on things that Labour say generally, but if they want to row back from it, they can. But it's all things they've said publicly.
Well, I think we can probably agree that a huge number of homes in this country, and we don't know exactly how many, do very much need to be insulated. There's lots of homes up and down the country which have got mould in them, black mould, because they're too cold, because people are trying to save on their heating, because the houses are not properly insulated. So this is something at some point we have to do as a country. Can I ask you, after next April, how much money the Conservative Party would spend in government on insulating houses?
So we've got a couple of plans. We've got the Eco Scheme and the Great British Insulation Scheme. They're due to end in March 2026. And they are accounted for in this costing, by the way. Well, and the work that they're on is accounted for within this costing.
The reason I ask about next April is that, as I understand it, from next April onwards, there are no detailed capital or current spending plans put into the books. The OBR has been very critical of you for that. So we just don't know what you would spend on anything. So it's one thing, fair enough, or all's fair in party politics, to have a go at the Labour Party for how much they would spend. But surely you have a duty to tell us exactly what your plans are.
We have. I mean, and I would also say the problem is that they don't know how much things cost, and then they don't have a plan to pay for it, which I think is a pretty big problem. But coming to your point, Andrew, in terms of our plans, so how government spending is set out, you have a spending review where you set out the specific departmental totals, but over and above that, you have a general amount that you are spending. So over this Parliament from 2019, we spent about 3% a year on growing public services. That will go to 1% from the end of this Parliament, so 2025 onwards. So
it'll feel to most people like a cut then.
1% growth real.
In real terms, okay, quite modest, but there it is.
Yeah.
I guess the problem is this: your plans, which are very modest, depend upon growth. And you say we're going to get growth. We've got a plan for growth, and the growth is going to provide the revenue that will provide us with better public services. The Labour Party say we have got a plan for growth, and our plan for growth will grow the economy in a way that allows us to fund our ideas for public services. And the voters have absolutely no idea which of you is right about your plans for growth. We haven't seen either of them. We don't have any experience to go on. You have not been great custodians of the economy over the last 14 years, and we don't know what Labour would be like either. We are all in a position of absolute ignorance.
Well, let me try and set it out clearly, because I think that you will see when I set out the contrast between the plan that we have and no plan for Labour. So we have said that we are going to spend 1%, as I said, over the next Parliament, real growth. That will result in public spending being £85 billion, bigger than it was in 2019. What Labour have said, what I think they've said, is that they were going to stick to our spending envelope as well.
They are.
But they're going to do this £28 billion on top. Now, they've also said that they're going to stick to their fiscal rules. So if they're going to do that, that means that they can't borrow to pay for it. So that must mean higher taxes.
Well, they believe that they can borrow for capital investment, and that is something this country should have been doing for years. But I take your explanation, and thank you very much indeed for coming to talk to me. We are running out of time for that now.